This video is going to show you how to process your data using Google Sheets for the reaction rate versus temperature experiment. So if this is the data that you've recorded from your experiment, then what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this data into Google Sheets. Now you may have had to add an extra row for one of your temperatures, so to do that, if you're unsure, you right click and you just go insert row above or insert row below. Insert row below, and that will add in extra rows. To delete those rows, if you don't need them, you right click again and you just go delete row, right click, delete row. Okay, so now we're going to take this data table where we've already recorded some data and we're going to copy it and put it into Google Sheets. If you wanted, you could calculate your averages by hand, or you can use Google Sheets to do that. So we right click and copy, and we're going to go in File, New, Spreadsheet. Okay, now we're paid to call it something that we're going to remember what it is, because even though we're going to copy and paste our information back, we need to also be able to find it again in case something happens. So we'll call this reaction rate versus temperature experiment. Okay, and then in this box A1, we're going to right click again and go paste, and that's going to paste a table from before. And you can see that the words are too big for some of the boxes, so what you can do is hover over the line between A and B, double click, and it will automatically expand to the size that it needs to be. Sometimes it doesn't work perfectly, so you can readjust, but I'll show you how to do that in just a second. There we go. Alright, so if you need to readjust the rows, you just grab that line, hovering between the two letters, and then pull it to where you want it to be. So I like mine to be reasonably big so that I can see them a bit more easily. Okay, now we need to calculate the averages for these trials. So to do that, the computer can do that for you. We type in equals average, and if you're unsure how to spell it, it pops up below for you. Open bracket, and then highlight the information that you want. Be careful not to highlight 20 because that is just the temperature. It's not actually a data point, so we don't need that to be included in the averages. End the bracket, press enter, and there is your average. If you take hold of this little square in the bottom corner and drag it down, it will actually calculate the averages for every other one as well. And you can check that the result is okay by seeing what it says in here. So that says average B5 to D5. So if we look here, average B5 to D5. So that's okay. Now you've got lots of decimal points here. We don't need quite so many. So we can just change that. So we'll change it to 37 because we'll round up. So that one will say it took 37 seconds. Again, if we round up, this one will take 28 seconds. This one will take 20 seconds. This one, we're rounding down because 3 is less than the 5, so 13 seconds. And again, rounding down, 8 seconds. Okay. Now what we need to do is take the information in this column and the information in this column and make a new table with them. We don't really care about this information anymore. We're not going to graph it. We're only going to graph the information in this column, so the temperature, and the information in this column, the average time it takes for the reaction to happen. So we have to change the table's structure around so that it will graph nicely. To do that, we're going to write temperature here like this, and we're going to include the symbol for temperature, the unit, which is degrees Celsius. So you can't actually insert that symbol in Google Sheets. You need to copy it from where you've already got it. So you just highlight in this box up the top here where that is, and then in this box you'll pop it where you want it. And then we have to put the average time here. Now we're going to make that title a bit more specific because it's the title that's going to appear on our graph as an axis label. So if we make it specific here, it means less fiddling around later. So what was it the actual average time of? It was the average time taken for the bubbles to reach the 7 centimetre line. And then the unit for that was seconds, so we stick that in brackets. Okay, now we need to put in the temperatures. So we have 20, 40, 60, 80 and 100 degrees Celsius, and then down here we have the average times. So the average time taken for 20 degrees was 37. So we can write 37 there. The average time taken for 40 degrees was 28 seconds. Next one is 20 seconds. Next one is 13 seconds. The last one is 8 seconds. So there is our data, exactly the same as up here, these two columns, except put going across the page like this. Now we're going to create a chart or a graph using this information. So we highlight it all, and we go Insert, Chart. And you can see straight away whether it's correct, because the temperature was the independent variable, and we want that, being the independent variable, to be on this X or the horizontal axis, and then the average time taken for the bubbles to reach the 7 centimetre line, that is our dependent variable. That was the thing that we were measuring, so that has to go on the vertical axis or the y-axis. Now we want to create a line graph for this. So this is a bar graph currently, and you can see there are nice even spacings between here. You can see that we've got the right temperatures there, we've got the right numbers here, but we're going to change the chart type. So we click on chart type, and we're going to choose to have it as a line graph, because that shows us a line of best fit, and that is more accurate for the experiment that we're doing. Now we've got a title here, and that's a pretty good title because it incorporates the information from both the y-axis and the x-axis. It's telling us both things, but if we need to, we can change that by clicking on this customization button. So we'll have a look at this title. Average time taken for the bubbles to reach the 7 centimetre line in seconds versus the temperature. So instead of saying versus the temperature, we might like to say something like at different temperatures. And then check that we've got degrees Celsius. Once we're happy with that, we can click Insert, and here is our graph. So you can move the graph around, and you can also copy the graph. So by right clicking on the graph and going, maybe not, by just clicking on the graph and going Control C or File, no, we'll just stick with Control C. So click on the graph, click Control C, go back to your experiment, and here where we've got all these squares, we're actually going to get rid of them. So to get rid of them, because that's where we want our graph to go, click on any of them, right click, and then say Delete Table, and that gets rid of it. So now we've just got this nice empty space where we can stick our graph. If you now go Control V, we're going to get this thing that pops up that says Link Chart to Spreadsheet. And we want to do that because that means that we're going to be able to see the chart or the graph that you created over here in this page here, which is where we want it, so that when I mark it, I can see it all in one spot. So we click Paste, and there pops your graph, which is awesome. Okay, now we need to include the averages here. So we go back to where we were before, and we can get the averages off our table. So you can copy these in, Control C again, go back, put them here, Control V, and that pastes them. Now they're a funny colour, so we can change that by just going Highlight None, and then changing them back to being black. You didn't have to highlight your ones, but if you did, then this is what you can do to fix that. We don't need them to be bold, and then we want some lines around there. So see if we can do it this way. No, never mind. That's alright. The lines don't matter too much. So that is how you do your averaging in Google Sheets, and then create the graph in Google Sheets so that you don't have to hand draw them and have your assessment part hand drawn and part digital.